Hi, my name is Kyle. I'm from Toronto, Canada. Currently enrolled in the Intro to Audio Production put on by Coursera. And for week 3, I'm going to talk about channel strips, and signal flow. Now, obviously, we're looking at an analog board here, and a lot of people get a little bit intimidated by such boards because there's so many different knobs and buttons and switches, and there's a lot going on. And I don't know what's happening, but really, for the most part, a good chunk of the board is made up of what we call channel strips. And what's a channel strip? If you draw a line straight down from the top up in here, straight down like that, and we're coming across all these buttons and switches in here. This is what we call a channel strip. Now if I zoom in, you can actually see, right, the board's divided up in there. They have all the different lines in here separating the different channels in there, so it makes it a little bit easier to see. But as I said before, a good chunk of the board, I'd probably say 75% of the board's made up of these channel strips. So you get one of them down, you got like 75% of the board down already. Now typically the signal is going to be flowing from the top down this way in here. Now, doesn't always flow that way. It's going to be flip-flopping back and forth, but for the most part, we're going to be flowing in this direction in here. Now, every board's different too, right? So we might want to look at the schematics to see where it could be flip-flopping around a little bit. Now, if we zoom into the top in here, we can see our input points. Now, we have two here. We have a XLR, we have a mic line, and we have a line level in here. So we can take two different source levels in here. After this, the signal is flowing into our phantom power unit. Now, the phantom power unit is located at the back of the board in here, and that's a global phantom power, meaning that as I turn it on, it's going to turn on all the phantom power for every mic pre in here. Now, this is a cheap board in here, but when you get into the higher end boards, every channel is going to have its own little phantom power switch on it, so which makes it really nice. After that, the signal is going to flow into our gain stage in here. So we adjust our level coming into the input levels and that, so we get a nice good signal. You see a little button here. This button here is actually a high pass filter. Now this is where it's going to be flip-flopped a little bit. I'm going to come back to this guy in here. Now, as I said before, this board being a little bit on the cheaper side, typically after this stage we go into what we call an insert point or an insert section. Now that's where we can take the signal if we choose, send it out to a different device, be it a compressor, be it an EQ, bring it back in here so we can do some exterior processing, bring it back in, and then we continue on down the channel. So we don't have that on here, but we're going to continue on with this board in here, and it comes down into our next station, our next level in here, which is our EQ section. Now this is a 3-band EQ. We got a high, a mid, and a low. The highs on this board is actually set to 12K, and it's a shelving type. So that means anything above 12K we can boost or cut. The mids are set to, I believe, 2.5 with a fixed Q on it, so we can adjust in that range as well. The lows are set to, I believe, an 80, and again it's a shelving, so anything below 80 we can boost or cut as well. Now, coming back up to this high-pass filter in here, it's actually happening after the fader in here. Not after the fader, after the EQ in here. So it's what we call a post EQ. And this high-pass filter is actually set to 75 hertz. So everything below 75, we can gauge it, gets cut off. Moving on down, we come into our auxiliary sections in here. Now, this board actually has two, auxiliary 1 and 2, right? So we can take the signal, send it out to other devices. Typically, in this cases, would be reverbs, delays, and stuff like that. Bring it back in and mix it in with our signal as well. Now, auxiliary 1 on this board is actually what we call pre-fader. So here's our fader down here. It's actually a knob, not a fader, so it looks a little different, but still functions the same way. It's actually following in suit in here, so it's pre-fader. It's happening before the fader. Auxiliary number 2 down here is what we call post-fader, meaning it's actually happening after the fader in here. So as I drop the volume down in here, it's actually going to be dropping the volume on that send signal as well. So if I send if it's going out to a reverb or something like that, as I drop the volume down in here, the volume of the reverb is going to fade along with it as well. So it works out nicely in that sense. Falling down here, we have our pan pot down here, so we can adjust our source amongst the stereo spectrum. Now, again, well, actually, this guy in here is actually happening after the fader as well. So as we drop the volume down here, it's actually going to drop the wherever it's located in the stereo spectrum. Now, again, a bit of a cheaper board. The higher end boards actually have a solo button and a mute button. So if I hit the solo button on here, it's going to solo the whole track all by itself. So I can only hear this one channel. If I hit the mute button, it's going to mute this track, but I can hear everything else, right? So it makes it nice and easy when you're trying to zoom in on or trying to focus in on certain aspects of a sound or something like that. So that's just the basic overview of this little guy in here. Hope it was helpful in that. Again, you get these guys down here. It's pretty much the same thing across all the bigger boards and all that, just with some extra features and that. Hope that was helpful. Got any comments, any tips, whatever, leave them. No problem there. And I guess we'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye.